Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to REthink Live, August edition. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got some of our REthink Council members here talking about how momentum isn't magic. We've got 7 agents from around the country who will give us some honest conversation about how the first 6 months of their year have gone and how they intend to keep their foot on the gas moving forward in an ever-changing real estate market with continued success. Austin Nielsen, our broker owner and broker advisor from Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Midwest Realty, is going to help lead the conversation today. And Austin, I'm turning it over to you.
Hello.
Can't waste another minute listening without all of these things that we're going to share today.
Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it may be, wherever you're at. So what I'm going to say is I'm just going to open up. So we have like 103 sales days remaining roughly. So if you take a 30-day close into that, we've got 79 effective working days left. So you should be to 66% of your goal by the end of the year as of today. So if not, you need to sit back, recalculate, and redo some things. And that's why this call, I think, is so critical today. So without further ado, I'm just going to start with Grace. And congratulations, Grace. You just got a pretty big honor and award.
Oh, thanks,
I
guys.
will let you tell yourself and tell us what you just received.
Oh, goodness. Well, first off, thank you guys. That's always appreciated. Had a really fun surprise in my inbox when I was named to the Tom Ferry under 30 list. So that was really cool. It was a fun surprise. It's cool when we can do all this fun work for our clients, and to see it, recognized nationally is great. And shout out to the REthink Council for being the best support system. So
Awesome. Okay, Grace, what are you doing? What are you sitting back? What are you changing? Fill us in. What's it look like?
Hey, oh, it's a lot. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was super excited when I found out that this was the topic for today, personally, because I think if I had to pick one quarter that I get the most excited about, it's probably quarter four. And I don't know if that just makes me like a real estate nerd, or if I'm in the masses on that or whatnot. But I took some of my reasons that I love quarter four and took that and found different ways that are very tangible, easy to implement things, so that hopefully after this call, you can say, there was 1 or 2 things that were mentioned that you can absolutely implement today to affect your quarter four yet in 2026. So, and these are things that I'm doing currently and I've done over the last handful of years as well. So, one thing, the main pillar I think everyone on REthink Council would agree with is loving on our people, loving on our clients. I think it's a great time to be doing that. Quarter four is always so crazy busy for everyone in life in general. So being able to stay in touch with our people during that time, I think is pretty impressive. With that being said, I would like to maybe highlight a couple different like rapid fire ideas that happen within quarter four that I think people can run with. With that being said, I think about October, I've seen teams or agents who have reserved parts of a local pumpkin patch. I think that is a great way that's a go big or go home event. I will say, like, that's a big investment. But I think that's a way that you can create an experience that your people look forward to every year. I think on the front of, hi Bridget, I just saw your comment. But I would say one that was a very budget friendly one for me personally, my second year in the business, I partnered with a local popcorn store here in town. I did festive bags of popcorn, tied them up really cute, delivered those. That was great. So I wouldn't let budget totally get in the way of being in touch with your people, going that little extra bit of a detail to make sure you're letting them know you're thinking about them. Month of November, I think everyone has probably seen an agent or 10 who have done the pies, which super great way to like just again add to your people's family get-togethers. I think that's a great way to kind of stay in touch with them, stay in front of them by offering a sweet treat. We do Village Inn pies, make it super fun. Our list has grown to be pretty kind of crazy. So now we do a drive-through event at our office for it. But the 2 years prior to that, I delivered them, and I also set up times with my people when I was dropping those off. So I wasn't just doing a porch drop and running. I was having a 10, 15, 20-minute conversation with them to genuinely like dive into that relationship. How are things going? What, is there anything that you need my assistance with, or anyone you think I should be connecting with to help them in whatever aspect of real estate I can? I'm kind of rapid firing, so just stop me if I'm
Well,
going.
you keep talking about all these in budgeting. Do you budget? Do you track your numbers? Do you think coming into 2027 and towards the end of the year, people should be
Yes.
looking and like all of you, do you think people should be tracking their expenditures? And if they're not, why should they be?
Yeah, I think so. I will say, like, I was someone that like I put my head in the sand the first couple years of it, and I did not treat it like a business. I had a really like tough conversation with myself 2.5 years-ish ago of like I really am the CEO of Buy and Sell with Grace. I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the one who's going to decide the longevity and the success of my business. No one's going to do that for me. So that was kind of an inner talk that I had with myself, but that had to reflect to my actions day to day. And I will say I'm someone that I have learned to hold myself very accountable. I struggled with that, not gonna lie. It's hard to sometimes put the mirror in front of ourselves and figure out what is not going so great. But also you have to make sure you do give yourself the shout out of like, this was so great this year. Cool. What can I make better for next year? And I put together, a mid-year review system for my team that we actually just got done reviewing, which I know probably can feel a little bit like, ew, I don't want to do the whole review situation, but in my opinion, I'll share a couple like highlights from it and hopefully maybe it can spark some ideas for those of you who have maybe struggled to look in the mirror and say, hey, this has to change in order for me to go to the next level. Um, One of those pages is, scoring your business like a CEO, and it's simple yes and no questions. And I think my two favorite questions on it, one related to client experience, meaning would someone pay more because of your experience? Yes or no? And you don't have to overcomplicate it. It should be a rapid fire off the top of your brain. If you and your brain cannot say 100% yes, they would. How, why, who, what, when needs to change in order for that to be an immediate yes. You should be able to sit back and have a confident answer to that. A second one being marketing. Does your marketing create trust before people meet you? I think that in today's market, there's so many, I mean, not gonna lie, there's a lot of us out there, and no matter where you're at. So people need to be able to look you up online, on socials, whatever it is. And the social media that you're putting out there, the branding, like whatever you want to call it, needs to create trust before you actually sit down with those people in their home or on a buyer consult. So those are
I
a
think
couple of
I've
questions. Yeah,
said to all of you, you're all gas stations and you can get gas at any one of you. It's the experience and the level of service that you can provide somebody that's going to bring them back to pay more for that premium fuel. So you're all
100%. Yeah,
premium agents. So,
yeah.
like, not to cut you off, but I see Holly sitting there smirking and smiling. So, like, what are you doing going into the end of the quarter?
Okay, so I think I'm one of the newest agents in our group, in our cohort this year. Less than 5 years, I'll tell you guys quite honestly, just over the 2 year mark. And I came from a business, I ran a fitness and nutrition consulting business for about a decade. And you can imagine that I'm working with people that they're trying to make big changes in their lives, right? So a big, and this was from my own personal journey, was learning about consistency. Something I've learned about consistency is that, and thinking about this topic of momentum, I was really excited about this topic for our meeting today, is that momentum is what consistency feels like over time. So that we're not experiencing those really big valleys in our pipeline, month to month over the course of the year. Yes, we're going to have certain times of the year where we're maybe doing more business, but how can we avoid those really big gaps, right? And so for me, what this really looks like is removing friction. And even more specifically than that, this idea of everything needing to be perfect. And sometimes done is better than perfect. And so what that looks like is I kind of thought about three, I guess, main pillars that I wanted to talk with you guys about today. And I'd love to hear what everybody else has to think on this topic. So one of the big ones is like stop reinventing the wheel. How can I remove friction? Some of those common conversations or questions that I'm getting, or so what this is, kind of a template that I've built out using AI to help me. But immediately after a listing appointment, I have this and I go in and I plug the specific details for the seller into the information and I send them follow-up notes. They are so happy to receive follow-up notes with listing prep details same day after a listing appointment. I also send a handwritten card. I actually write this before the appointment as I'm getting ready for the appointment, and it's in the mail already as I'm on my way to the appointment. So they receive that after the appointment, no matter how the outcome is. I also have a template now. Grace has shared over and over about this fillout.com. I've created a template because I was always getting bogged down working on listing preparation and really gathering details about the property and asking all the same questions. Does the property have septic? Is it on sewer? What are the utilities? What's the cost to own? Tell me about the updates and all this. So I built out a form, and I've for my last three listings now. It's four listings now. It's worked very, very well. So I'm super excited about that. So just that's one example, kind of removing, it's still very specific, of course, but it's just kind of removing the friction. Allows me to be more consistent and therefore continuously have momentum. Another thing, kind of thinking about the holidays, thinking about fourth quarter, thinking about beginning of the year, 2026, crazy. January was so far was my strongest month of the year. And what I did, so on Thanksgiving Day, I just sat there and it was first thing in the morning. We were on vacation at the time, but I just made like a 15-20 second. I mean, I was like, in my pajamas. I didn't look perfectly polished, but I just sent this to everybody that I had a closing with. I sent it to actually a couple of people at my company and just sent a 15-20 second, video message just saying, hey, thank you for being part of my year. You're amazing. Hope you guys have an awesome holiday. You could send it the day prior, the day of. People may have different thoughts about doing that, on Thanksgiving Day, but that's one thing I think, my thought is like momentum is like, how do I stay top of mind, right? And not be perfectly polished. And then the other thing is something I'm very active on social media. It is helping my family. It's helping my business a ton. I think a lot about when I'm creating, coming up with ideas for content is questions I get a lot, like conversations I'm having, a lot of those similar questions or things that one of the topics is VA assumptions. I have closed several VA assumptions for buyers and sellers. I'm very familiar with this process. I've worked with agents on the other side that have been doing this for 25 years and they were unfamiliar with VA assumptions. So that was really neat. I got to walk them through that process, as a cooperating agent. And so that's a topic that, I could talk for hours about, honestly. So as I come up with things, I just have you probably, maybe a lot of you have just a running list of, notes on your phone or somewhere where you just brainstorm and jot down ideas. That's one thing. Instead of like I truthfully don't have this really detailed marketing strategy plan timeline thing. I may one day, but right now it's about being consistent, which allows me to keep steady momentum. So
you're
does
being
that make sense to
genuine.
anybody?
You're being genuine.
Yeah, trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Ambre, as we were getting on the call, you were talking about you're having someone remove friction at night or you're doing something.
Yeah, so recently I was like, I need to get better systems in place so that I can keep on growing, keep on moving forward. And how does this look? Because if I'm trying to do everything during the day and a lot of transactions I had last year with top producing agents, I started noticing the times that I was receiving responses and when I was receiving emails and just kind of how things were being documented and sent. And I was like, oh, I feel like this is a scheduled send. I feel like they had this prepped and it's ready to go. And how does this make sense? So I was like, I feel like I'm at a point that I need an assistant, but not a showing assistant just yet. I just need someone that can help me on my back end, kind of get to my notes, get to my to-do list that I can't get to all day long, but also I don't think I need someone during the day. So I ended up finding a relatively close friend that has two children that was completely open to doing 10 hours a week for me. So 2 hours a night. She comes into essentially my notes, into my templates, starts drafting, going through what I need, starts scheduling, kind of. Implemented Claude last week too and tagged my Gmail to it, tagged my Canva to it. And we're kind of learning and growing together in that sense of what can we do with AI that she can do as like my nightly cleanup, my nightly tidy up of what was I not able to do, what can I get to with her kind of drafting, getting it started for me, that when I wake up in the morning, it's like a fresh page of, okay, this is where we're starting. This task was completed, this was not, but here's, you're okay to give. So that's really been beneficial to me because I'm able to also drop ideas in and she's able to kind of run with them and say like, hey boss, need approval on this. Is this good to go? And I mean, it's been great.
That's awesome. Ryan,
Howdy.
you're being real
I have
quiet
a
for
lot to
being
say, and
15
it's
years
nothing
in real
about what I
estate.
talked about last week on our prep call. Like I've got all new material, so I'm just gonna run with it.
Well, hold on,
Um,
hold on,
I
hold on, hold on. I saw you posted a photo from high school. It was like a senior photo, 15 years of real estate is like this month, this week.
I got licensed in August 2011, 15 years ago.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And it is hard to believe. Time flies when you're having fun. My husband told me, I showed him the picture. I don't know if he was his first thing was like, you look like you need to be home by 10 p.m. I said, I'm still have to be home by 10 p.m. because I'm tired at night. But anyway, but no, I'm celebrating. And so I am doing one of the things I'm doing at the end of this month, and I think would be a great idea for any agent. School doesn't start here until after Labor Day. So, I mean, that's a different thing. But if you could do a back to school, end of summer ice cream social, summer celebration, I'm having an ice cream truck at one of my listings during an open house. And I'm also tying it to my 15-year anniversary in real estate. But I feel like this is something that you can go with and, have an event that then you're seeing these people literally right before the fourth quarter. That gives you an opportunity to follow up with them afterwards. It gives you an opportunity to reach out with them about, business that may be coming down the pipeline instead of waiting until I know a lot of people will do holiday events and this and that. And to me, like December just gets so busy. The days are short. I don't want to leave my house at 5 after it's dark at 4:30 p.m. I think the end of summer is going to be something new that I'm trying this year. I did do a pumpkin patch previously. But I think this might be my thing, and I think it would be a great idea. I'm anticipating. I think the ice cream truck has I can have it for 2 hours, and it's a $400 minimum. So I don't know how many folks is going to show up, but it should be a fun thing to do. And of course, the fortune is in the follow up because a lot of people will be like, "Oh, we're busy, we're this, that, and the other," but it's the reach out, it's the connecting to your sphere, and the expressing of the gratitude. And I will say, as far as with the expenses, I know Grace was talking about the thing, then it's like momentum feels expensive before it's profitable. I will say the same thing going back to looking at leads that for the fourth quarter for me, one of my sources of business this year has been some expireds that came off in the fourth quarter last year. So in January, I took a list of 25 to 30 expired listings that are withdrawn listings that came off the market in the fourth quarter. I had not reached out to them during the fourth quarter. I take that back. I started in December. I sent a little holiday pop by, with a wrapping paper and whatnot, and then a Happy New Year message. But I really started going big after them in the new year because a lot of people that expire, they are on a timeline. They've got a job. They'll rent the house, this, that, and the other. But there's a lot of people that are just like looking to downsize. And yes, they wanted to do it in 2025 or 2026. But, if you can go after them in 2027, that has been a very helpful thing. And so when we talk about the expense before, you get the profit, I will say that Chalk Digital has been a huge thing for me in the things that it does in Resource Center and making sure that you are, they see that you are literally everywhere when they're on their internet, when they're on the phone. I also have used the Sage CRM, and I think we call it something different now.
Agent CRM.
Agent CRM. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we have the agent CRM, but they have like neighborhood reports in there. So you can drop that off to the expired listing and you just literally print it out. You don't have to pull comps. You don't have to do anything. It's kind of like, this is the last 3 or 4 home sales in the last 6 months in your neighborhood. And, take a look. I literally would drop it off at their door with my business card, as a way to stay in touch because consistency, like Holly pointed out, is very, very important. And I would say that's whether you're doing follow-up, whether you're doing social media, like you are not going to get a listing from one social media post, but what it's going to do is breed familiarity and build trust and strengthen those relationships. So I try to think of anything that I'm doing. I want to work smarter, not harder. And so I'm trying to look at any sort of social media I create right now to be not necessarily evergreen, but to still be working for me past like that 24-hour cycle where it's out there, where like whether it's on YouTube or whether it is on
Ryan, will you explain
Instagram.
what evergreen is?
Evergreen content, that's a good question. If I could define it, would
Well,
be,
anyone can define it in this group. Come on.
well, I mean, I guess it's just stuff that's more practically usable for a longer period of time than as for a one-off
I also
post,
think of it
you
as
know.
something that's not going to like get buried in a feed also. So a lot of like YouTube content can be really good for evergreen, or repurposing previous content in Instagram, for example. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan.
No, so I mean, I think that's yeah. It's hard to define, but I feel like
Well,
it's more practically used than just one time.
so you're building that, you're doing video. And then if I remember in our call, Gabriella said, I'm kind of going to go back to the basics and clean up my database. Like
That's right.
I need to get into a relationship.
That's right. And, kind of, Ryan, you're taking the words out of my mouth, but after our prep call last week, I was kind of thinking about it. And I stopped and asked, like, where are my leads coming from? And started asking, who can I create value for today? Right. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, as far as, hosting the neighborhood ice cream socials instead of the expensive client appreciation events. I think I heard on the call last week, like moms and mimosas for back to school. I'm like, I'm going to host that. I love that. And, whether it's the written letters after open houses or introducing neighbors to one another, or even just stopping by your neighbor's house and being like, somebody came to my house the other day and asked me, who's your gardener and what do you recommend? And I ended up stopping by their house and just being the resource in the neighborhood, I think is great. One thing I also wanted to mention, as much as we love video, and I remember when I first started, I would just post like my open house details, and people are like, they want to see your face. And, I got in front of the camera, and that can be scary, and I encourage it for many. But instead of, measuring my followers and my views and my likes, now I'm kind of measuring my conversations, my coffee meetings, those handwritten notes. Property tours, introductions made. I think that goes a long way. So kind of piggybacking on what Ryan said, those events are meaningful. And again, we are in a relationship business. So just, the relationships, the people are there. How do we build on that?
Yeah. And I think you hit something that we don't often talk about. You're tracking. I
Mhm.
believe you all track everything you do.
Mhm.
Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I had mentioned last week is,
Everything.
what's that?
From a nutritionist,
I
like,
said track everything.
Seriously, we're tracking everything. But what I had mentioned last week was, a well-organized CRM. Personally use Follow Up Boss, and, I'm guilty of, I go to an open house, I get their name and their email, I tag them with my newsletter, and then I kind of just, they keep adding to my database, which is great. But, one thing I am looking forward to is kind of organizing that. And instead of sending the same message to everyone, build relationships through relevant, timely touch points, right? So whether they're active buyers or nurture or hot prospects, they should not be receiving the same communication. So that's something my goal at the end of the year is kind of cleaning that up and being relevant to those people.
yeah, absolutely. Joe, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, I'm loving all the great ideas here. I have a little bit of overlap, but yeah, getting back to like, Q4 client care quarter, I think is something that we really lean on. And for those who don't know me, I'm Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices, Fox and Rogues Realtors. And yeah, so I'm in the North Central New Jersey, and something about client care, calls, Popeyes, and notes. I think the systems that I've tried to create to keep consistency. So one thing that I do is I've leaned on doing anniversary calls, like home anniversary calls for our clients. And I've kept it very consistent where it's a system, it's all set up. So every month I'm making those calls, and I get to know my clients more by asking some of those forward questions, like, what do you guys do this summer? So just continuing to build rapport. And real estate usually pops up naturally, like how's the market? And, being prepared to answer some of those questions. So that's something that I really lean on. And then as far as, yeah, I think what Gabriella was saying is, tracking, I try to track calls and pop-bys. I try to set a goal for a quarter, how many I'm doing. So, and the other thing that's great, whether depending on who you are, it could be a voicemail, it could be a text, it could be a call, it could be a voice message, whatever you feel comfortable with. I think it's just about, having these conversations. Something else that, I'm looking forward to doing more this past quarter, I did something where I took out of our group is trying to become more micro than macro, with social media. So I teamed up with a local coffee shop that opened up in my town. And I just said I wanted to promote them. I wanted to do, let the town know that it's opened up. And it was so great, just getting to shoot the video and getting to talk with the owner. And, I felt like conversations even that day were just flowing. And, he was like, we were talking about you should come back and, we could do a first time home buyer seminar, and get people interested in the community, especially the younger generation about, buying a home. And I just felt like that was a really great thing. So I'm looking to do more micro things heading into Q4. Yeah, I think, the overall thing too is there's so many ideas here. So I think like, just trying to grab one, two, three, and being consistent because there's so much information, there's so many ideas. I think it's like looking at things and what are you capable of? What can we be capable of keeping consistency? So that's what I'm really focusing on heading into Q4 into 2027 versus trying to do it all.
Awesome. I love that. You all have your value figured out. It's how am I impacting and changing someone's life through the touch of myself? And how is that helping me grow my business? Mandy, you've been really quiet.
No, I'm just patiently waiting. And also I want to make
You
sure
don't
I'm
have to wait, just so
listening
y'all know,
well.
you can all jump in.
I
So,
know. And it's like you said, I think this is an interesting time of year. I love the 66% statistic that you said, right? You should be 66% to your goal. It's just a good self-reflection, even if you don't necessarily have like some astronomical goal financially or how many people you want to take care of. I think it's just a good level set time in the year for everybody. So I love hearing, again, kind of a refresh of what people are doing this year versus last year and all of that. For me, three things. I think warm follow-up has been something I've heard consistently rather from Joe, Gabriella, right? Grace, you're mentioning kind of events and things like that. You too, Ryan. And for me, in order to stay sane, I've really tried to coach myself on focusing on what is right in front of me. And that is almost like an Excel spreadsheet version of warm people that I'm working with, right? So even to the level of have I called them this week? When was the last time I talked to them? Making sure that they're not getting lost in the process. Maybe they're not under contract. Maybe we're not actively looking at homes, but they're interested. They've raised their hand and they said, yes, I want to buy or sell in the next 3 to 6 months. And I need to make sure that I'm doing my job to let them know that I'm remembering them, whatever that looks like. So not just, my sphere that maybe I've already worked with in the past or, have actively referred me to somebody, but these people that have come into my real estate world, I'll call it, right? Maybe they already are a friend or a colleague from a previous life, but that's been huge. So using tools like our postcards through some of our BHHS marketing, center, going to BHHS Resource Center and really looking at all the marketing tools I have available to me, working cohesively with someone in our marketing department to say, how should I be using this better? I did hire an assistant, thanks to Grace and many people on this team about 3 months ago, and we're getting to that 90-day mark now. And so going back and reflecting with her and asking, hey, what gaps do you see? Where am I not utilizing a newsletter where I should be? Should our branding be different? Is it consistent enough? Do people know it's me or do they think I'm just Berkshire Hathaway, right? So kind of figuring that out, but being very consistent to everybody's point. I'll use that word again. And creating the momentum there so that it's a process, number one. I love, Amber, you mentioned that. You're getting really good, it sounds like, with perfecting that with Claude. So maybe I'll lean into that. I've got some notes here to pick up on that. And then two, education. So once they are in, especially buyers, educating them, making sure that we're pre-qualified, we've got a great lender, what type of loan are they going to have, what are their numbers, what does their payment and closing costs look like. So when I am ready and they are ready, we are writing offers like very quickly on things. And that's really helped my momentum with my buyers. On the seller side, I think for me in my sphere right now, the people I'm working with haven't sold in a while. I'm actually working with a couple right now. It's actually an outside referral to a BHHS agent. It's a 40-year home in Virginia. Not your part. Don't worry, Ryan. And so anyways, and they haven't sold a house in 40 years, right? So they just don't know what to do and they want to buy a house here in North Carolina. So from a consistency and momentum standpoint, it's about educating and working with both seller agents, listing agents, as well as, sellers to say, hey, this is how long it's taking typically. Have you asked your listing agent these questions? What is their, knowledge of the market? Have they told you how long it takes to sell? And then locally, obviously doing the same thing, and really process mapping, I would say, consistently. So using tools within our BHHS marketing, number one, two, kind of figuring out where they are in the process, and then three, just executing based on their needs and creating those project plans has been huge for my momentum. And it's kept people in flow, or I call it on the hamster wheel, right? Where you're at least, feel like you're doing something and not just spinning. Because this is certainly a seasonal business, I think, for everybody's markets in different ways, even if they're not the same seasons. Does that answer your question, Austin? I know we're all covering some different
absolutely.
things.
Because here's the thing. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're just getting more precise on what we're doing on the wheel is what I want to say. I often say you have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. And I will say that all of you are getting uncomfortable to some degree. Ryan, you're doing more video than you've ever done. Ombre, like you did your Little Tykes house. Were you comfortable doing that, or was it completely uncomfortable?
Completely uncomfortable. And I was like, we need to do it. We need to start being purposeful in what we're putting out on social media, because the big difference too is I want people to know who I am before they meet me. And so specifically on my Instagram too, I have a get to know me, start here, who I am. And like my who I am shows my horses, shows my other half, shows my dogs, like shows what's important to me and my why of why I do this. And so kind of getting out there, doing different things like that one, the Little Tights one gives you a laugh and it shows you personality that like we're going to have fun when we're looking at houses. Like this doesn't have to be an uptight experience, but like I will be that little angry agent that you need me to be to fight for you. But like we're going to have a good time. And I think getting that out there, people are talking to me about it. They're like, hey, have you sold that little house yet? And I go, which one? And they're talking about that video. So it's just getting out there and doing different things and still being like genuine to you and kind of breaking out your shell and saying it's okay. And like people are going to talk about you regardless. So you might as well make it fun and good.
Well, and that's what's Ombre, that is really neat because, Austin had mentioned about being genuine, being authentic, but it's really going to benefit. I mean, it's going to benefit your clients more because if they're looking for somebody like you, you're showing up online the way that you actually are. By the time that you actually meet in person, it's a great, you're in alignment. It's going to be a great fit, a really solid experience. And that's going to benefit your quality of life and your longevity as an agent as well.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
Can we get back? Sorry, somebody mentioned in the chat, but Grace, we were talking about budgeting earlier, Austin, and I think it's something that is I'm actually changing CPAs right now, and I work in QuickBooks. Grace has mentioned QuickBooks to a lot of people. A lot of people actually brought this up in my office, and everybody had kind of like crickets when we were talking about accounting and accountability from a financial standpoint. And I think right now till really October is such a good time to start to go over your numbers. And so I think somebody asked about that, like, how much do you spend? Well, just track it. I think first, just tracking it and consistently figuring out where your money is going is number one. And then go back and reassess. Once you have all of that, it's just like your database, right, Gabriella? Like you have a database. Now you're going to go back and reorganize and make sure it's consistently refreshed. To me, that's huge because I've lost more money this year even though I've made more money, I've given away, I should say, more of my compensation than I did last year, even though dollar for dollar, I'm up in my GCI and I'm up in, my overall sales. So it's just interesting, right? And you put that on us as a Rethink Council last year to reflect on those things. And it was a good mirror. And so now to sit back and have a little bit perspective on that has been very helpful.
I think
I'm a firm believer that we have a lot of amazing agents in the United States, but some of these top agents, their P&Ls are so bad that they might make $1.5 million and they might only net $150,000 to take home. So the fact that you guys are talking about a budget and doing a budget and looking at a budget, I think is critical. I think the other thing that you all realize is if you sign up for something in 90 days, if it's not working, you let it loose. You let it go.
Yeah, I agree. I think the budgeting stuff, it's scary. It's overwhelming because again, that going back to like you are the CEO of your business, no one else is going to sit here and review your month over month what is on auto pay that you don't think about, like those subscriptions you sign up for and you're like, oh, $100 a month, and you don't think about it until you get to the end of the year and you've spent, $1,200 on it. Could that have been a better ROI elsewhere? I definitely think if you don't have something like a QuickBooks, invest in that. That is 100% going to pay you back in your business. So definitely look into that. I would say as well on the topic of consistency, look at it every month, if not more than that, because if you let it go by and you're like, oh, I'll do it once a quarter, I'll do it once every 6 months, it's going to be really scary and overwhelming. And I think that your numbers will get away from you. Having been someone who was in that position where I didn't have that, I literally printed off bank statements and was like trying to run through my expenses. It was a fool's game in my opinion. And I'm so grateful that I now, again, that's part of like my monthly review with myself as my own CEO of my business. Again, we're entrepreneurs in what we do. We get to decide how successful we're going to be. So I love how you call that the client care quarter, Joe. I think that's brilliant. I think in there, like, again, make sure you're adding a pocket for yourself because your clients, the care you provide them is going to obviously come off of how stressed or how level-headed you are. And if behind the scenes, your numbers are a mess, that will bleed through into how your service, what level of service you're providing. So make sure you're aware of that. I think on the budgeting aspect, just really quick too, I think this entire council knows I'm someone like I love events, I love pop buys, I love like all the little extra details. And I have now worked into a system to where I budget for those at the beginning of the year. I do 4 events a year. That's something that I have seen ROI for my business up and above I would have ever expected. So that's why I'm going to stay consistent with it. But maybe if you're someone who's just starting out and you are thinking, what can I do so that I'm not, when I go to this pop buy, I'm not like, where am I going to get the cash from? Try and take 100, 200, 300 from every single check that you've got, from every deal that you close, and put it away into a pop buy budget, into an event budget, something. And that way you can know like, oh, that, May I'm going to do like I do start of summer buckets for all of my clients who have kiddos under the age of 12. And like we deliver those. So I know my budget in there. I just also use chat to like help me find different items on Amazon, Walmart, you name it. Don't overcomplicate it. Use AI to help us as a tool there. But try and just look at it that way rather than having to say like, oh my goodness, I'm going to need, $800 for this. Where am I going to get it? Try and take it out of that so it feels a little bit less pressured or overwhelming.
Okay, so Grace and anybody else. So Grace, you're spending like more money than you have, in the past on pop buys. I'd be curious to know, kind of related to that, what are you guys spending less on, and or on the topic of momentum, what are you planning to do less of? So what are you spending less on, or what are you planning to do less of? For me, one example is I was really, as a newer agent, I was trying to like, what is going to stick? What's going to work for me? One of the things I chased early on was expired listings. I spent a lot on physical mailers, a lot of time on that. And I was pretty darn consistent. I mean, 5 touch points for each contact that I had. I had a really good system. And then for right now, at this time, I've decided to focus more on, I'm investing more in social media because that's a really strong pillar for lead generation, and sales conversion production for me. So what are you guys, I'm planning to do less right now, at least, in this market where I am in Northwest Florida. What are you guys spending less or doing less of going forward?
Great question.
I have reduced the amount of mailers that I sent out. I did have, like I told, I had that list of 25 that I went after, and they got a piece of mail from me each week for like 3.5 months, whether it was a Happy Valentine's Day postcard, or whether it was my, just listed for another property, or just sold, or a letter that had something in it. But I have stopped. I used to send out like to the whole neighborhood, 250 just listed. Right now, I just do the street. Like if you can see the house, and sometimes I'll just do the door hanger, and but I mean, a lot of times I'm happy to send out to the street where they can see, when they see my face on the sign, then they'll get my face in the mail. And so that has been, but you can run digital ads for less than, the cost of a stamp with Chalk Digital. It's still 69 cents a contact that they make contact with. If they don't make contact and see your ad, you don't pay. And a stamp right now is like 88 cents. So that has been something where you can upload like the 4 streets or the subdivision or whatever and run ads just listed to that subdivision. So I've shifted the budget into digital, whether that's been a boosted, social media reel, or whether that's been on Chalk Digital. I've just really tried to embrace that, because the Postal Service, I mean, I looked last year and I think I spent like over $8,000 in postage in 2025. I might say it was closer to 12. That's not like, I mean, but here's the thing, that's less than like $800 a month. I mean, if you're doing a mailer and you send it to 250 just listed, just sold, each listing, that's 500 pieces of mail.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it adds up, and it's just like, I mean, I don't even want to tell you how much we spend on like video and photography. When you add it up at the end of the year, it is kind of shocking. But if you have 14 listings or 16 listings, it's wow, okay, that's a year of college tuition or whatever you want to be. But part of the business that we're in.
I think, Holly, that's a really great question. And I honestly haven't really asked myself that. So thank you for, as my brain, like the wheels are spinning. But I feel personally, I've just got more intentional. I don't know if I'm necessarily spending less. As of right now, like my month over month expense is pretty similar. I do feel like with my listing expenses, I'm tracking how much I'm putting into media, what we're boosting, what's not, what's working. I feel like I'm being more intentional with tracking those types of expenses. Honestly, I feel like Brian, what you said earlier about like momentum feels expensive before it's actually profitable. I think that is 100% accurate, because I just did a new luxury campaign where we're sending out a really nice, it's the same black envelope that goes out for my Sphere newsletters, but we're doing it for a luxury edit, to everything in our luxury price point in the zip code that I know not like the back of my hand. And that's an investment right now, because I wanted it to be really high class 9x12 in envelope that these luxury homeowners get in the mail. So there are certain things where you're going to have a heavy investment up front. But again, that consistency, that word just keeps popping up. That consistency is so important, and you have to see it through. Don't do it once. If you don't see the rich, like, no, you've got to keep your head down, do it for an extended period of time. Obviously, like, Austin had said, like if you get to like that 90-day mark of doing something consistently and you don't see it, obviously if you're doing it like myself, I'm doing a luxury edit on like a quarterly basis. So I'm going to make sure I can get through a good 4 quarters of like sending that through, them getting aware of my face, seeing my name, before deciding if it makes sense. But make sure you're giving it an accurate timeline to play out, because again, not everything's going to be overnight. If it is, sweet, that's really great luck, but most things aren't going to play out that way.
I love what you said about intentional, and going back to Ryan's point, I did do a lot of mailers this year, and stamps are expensive. I was like, when did they get that expensive? And then you add it up, and just the amount of time I actually folded them, and the first time I hand wrote the envelopes, and I was like, okay, that's probably not a good use of my time. But going to like, you know, when I open the mailbox and I get a just listed or a just sold, it's like cool, right? But I just sent a mailer out as a postcard, and I just wrote about a house that got 13 offers in my neighborhood and how much over it went. And it's just like a little bit of information that you're not going to access right on the MLS. Like we all know what just sold and we all know what's coming up, but what's a little bit of information where I'm just kind of giving you like that nugget that you don't know, right? So maybe people just kind of read it and maybe it just sits there rather than going directly in the trash. So I think that being intentional with those pieces, especially if it's, you're paying to send those is very important.
Yeah, there is a dollar figure attached to every activity we do every day.
Mhm.
We wake up every morning unemployed and we have to figure out how to generate business. And we can't spend more than we bring in. So knowing your numbers, tracking your numbers, and knowing your activities is critical.
Austin, so two things I was gonna put out there that are like cost zero besides your time. But I think anyone and everyone, no matter how new or veteran you are, I think I would challenge everyone to do. In the month of November, I know phone calls can sometimes be a little bit uncomfortable for people. I know for me, those who know me, I don't come from a sales perspective. That's just not who I am at my core. But I knew that phone calls were important. Probably we're going on year 4 that I do this with my team, but we call them gratitude calls. That week of Thanksgiving, instead of our normal Monday team meeting, we scrap it and people come with their list. And I tell them that list should be the person who's referred you to their mother, brother, sister, cousin. It should be the person who shares every single Facebook post of yours. It's the person who wrote you that really nice card that you had a transaction with. Give them a call, not any ounce of an objective of sales or real estate should be involved. It's simply calling and saying, thank you so much. If you don't know, I want you to know how much your support means to my business. I would not be here without you as a part of this family, of the Buy and Sell with Grace family, however you frame it. But I will tell you, you will walk away with like a really full heart. But I know that every single call that we do every year for those gratitude calls, everyone has a different perspective on phone calls after that because it comes down to we're providing value. We're solely calling to hopefully brighten their day. And I think it kind of helps to see people in that light, and it costs $0 besides your time. So,
What about your makeup that's running? You can't tell me you don't make those and
oh
cry.
my God, trust me, our team out last year, it was like we just came in no makeup. We said it's not even worth it. So, but no, you really like everyone's like, wait a second, you're taking time out of your day when it's probably one of the busiest weeks of the year as far as everyone's lives, getting things ready to go, and you're calling me to say thank you. Like people are like, I get goosebumps thinking about it because it totally, we deserve to have that like little bit of warmth, but it's even better for our clients to get that phone call of like, thank you. And knowing that we all genuinely authentically mean it. Second quick little tidbit would be write a personalized card to the agents you did a transaction with this year at the end of the year. And point out something that's very much so personalized to that. You know, if there's an agent that taught you something about a system that you're like, oh my goodness, this is gold. I'm going to run with this. Thank you. Or like, hey, I just appreciate how level-headed you'd stay when, got a little bit rocky there in inspection negotiation, yada, yada, yada. I think any agent, no matter how new or if they've been doing this for 30 years, would genuinely appreciate a handwritten card that again costs you $0 besides I guess the card itself. But I think that would go a really long way because our agent reputation is something that has to grow with us as well, not just with our clients in the public eye. Those agents are our clients too, in a sense. So making sure we're saying thank you for their time and their expertise to work through those transactions with us.
Grace, on that point where you're reaching out to other agents in the area, Ambry, can you circle back and just share your little strategy that you've been doing to build your name in the community, but also to get some referrals?
Yeah, so recently, I guess it's actually kind of filtered back to when I first started in 23. Like, I just started making connections with other agents. So, regardless of how transactions went, I would go to coffee with some of them, I would go to lunch with some of them. I started to build friendships with them. Some agents too are newer, some agents are more experienced. You don't know where everyone is at with their career. You don't know if they need to lighten their load sometimes and a client just isn't seeming to be the right fit for them, that they have now made a connection with you that they might send you a referral because they know you're going to be the better fit. I've kind of focused on lifestyle properties too, being able to have that little niche, being able to meet with these agents. I just had an agent call me today that said, hey, I just got your phone number. I hear you do horse properties. What can you tell me about them? I've never done one and I've been in the business for 22 years. So it's about creating those relationships that, they might start working with that client and say, hey, I don't really feel like this is the best fit. I feel like I'm calling you a lot. Can I hand them off to you? I know you're going to take really good care of them. So I think building these relationships is really important because now you also have a whole different sphere of what do you think of this idea? Did you go to my last listing? Can you give me some updates on do you think this marketing worked? And you just get different perspectives and different viewpoints, but you're also creating a whole nother group that are your people.
Mm-hmm.
The reach
Any
out is
great-
key. No matter
Yes.
who you're reaching out to, right?
Yeah.
We have a question in the Q&A section. How can we become more intentional with door hangers? Is there a specific type of people of houses that it works better for? So I think they're looking for like a particular type of neighborhood or a particular price point. How many of you use door hangers? Ryan and Mandy. So this is your question.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I would say I do use them in, places where it makes sense. Like you can easily distribute the door hangers like on the streets. Like, I mean, for homes that are more rural or, a lot of times like townhomes or whatnot. I mean, I do try to make sure there's not a no solicitation policy in the neighborhood because I have unintentionally violated those before and had to ask forgiveness. But I like it because, you can print 100 of them for a lot less than you can mail 100 houses. I do not go and, try to walk, a marathon by passing them out. I do try to stick to, that block, a street over each way, that type of thing. But it certainly is a way to be out. And I will say that maybe the momentum builds since we're talking about that. It's like it's not just one big breakthrough all of a sudden it comes. It's these small things you do that compound. And so like you, for example, like you will be out passing out, you will meet the neighbor who's walking their dog, and then you can tell them about the house. Well, they'll tell you that somebody else is thinking about selling. And I will then ding, the radar goes off, and who do you think is going to get, some mail from me or another pop by, like intentionally, like, knowing of what's going on. So being out and about certainly helps. And so I just think it's kind of like you can meet people, to chat with people, tell them what's going on. I will do it maybe not necessarily as a just listed, but like, hey, here's my open house invitation. You can spin it different ways. I think Joe told us one time he was doing something about like letting people know like, hey, it's, like we're having an open house on this time, like forgive us, like if, parking's tough or whatever. There may be some people parked on the street, it's kind of like alert, like type thing. So
yeah. I coined it as please excuse the traffic. So I'd put like right before the open house or an hour before. And if a neighbor was home, it was a nice way to connect with them. Like, hey, we're having an open house from 12 to 3. Like, feel free to stop by. And on the back of it was just some information about our team and how we came about. And yeah, that was a good mailer for us, a door knocker.
That's all mine too, is event based. I don't do just sold or anything else. That's what I put it on. And I try to do like the day before. And I think, Grace, you're really good with pop buys. For me, it's almost like a forced pop by with a non-client, right? Like if they happen to answer the door or their kid or their dog or barks or whatever, you can apologize and introduce yourself and just kind of let them know about your open house, whether it's hanging it out or not. Or if they have a Ring doorbell, sometimes that'll go off and you like, introduce yourself on the Ring camera. And then they always have your information after that. Because everything gets recorded now, right? So good or bad. It's certainly something that I've utilized for open houses specifically, not anything else, really event based, so that you don't get that nasty gram, I guess, from the HOA. I have had those with my signs before, so I do know what that feels like, Ryan, but not from door hangers.
I'll share one on the door. Oh, go ahead, Mandy.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'll show one of the door hangers. I was digging around looking for it. I've got a couple of just marketing artifacts. This one's not a door hanger, but it's similar. This is a mailer that I did. Not all homes in Destin are selling, but this one did. And basically what I did is I just told a story. But the reason I share this is a program that I use pretty often. It's listing leads. It's Jimmy Mackin's listing leads. And I kind of take his ideas and, adapt them to what I need. But I did one where it's, did you hear about your neighbor? And essentially the house sold, and I tell the story in a couple of bulleted points, kind of walk the recipient of the door tag through the journey of how I got the home, from the very first meeting to the point where I got it sold and the outcome. And this specifically, I mentioned the door tag because it is in a neighborhood where I currently have my 7th listing in there. It's just a little townhome community, but that just kind of a different direction from the event-based, and it did pretty well. So the thing is with the door tags, you do have to go around and, might run into some issues with soliciting and all of that. So
I just want to piggyback on what you said, Holly. That tagline, have you heard about your neighbors? It captures their attention more than just a just listed. And I think
everybody's nosy.
Everybody wants that information, or they want to know someone that somebody doesn't. And so they're reading it, And so that was kind of going back to the one I sent about the 13 offers. I said, did you hear what's going on in our neighborhood? People are tuned in. Now they have a bit of information that they can't find online. So there's that. And then I just wanted to add the open house. Like if you have an open house, it's a no-brainer to just knock around. It's like so easy. You're going to be there. You're inviting them to your open house. If you have a catered lunch, you can say, come by, look at the house. Then they're already telling you stories about the neighborhood. And then you're building that relationship, and it's just so organic. So I think that's an easy one as far as knocking on the doors before an open house.
I think
Lauren's got a question in the Q&A. Do any of you farm? Can you talk about what has worked and how you budget?
Yes.
I think everybody farms in some sense. We've got just a couple of minutes. What?
I said literally, or no, I'm just kidding.
We literally do.
Sandy, go for it.
So I'm going to be more consistent this year on farming my own neighborhood. I was very consistent last year. I know my neighborhood like the back of my hand. I did have 2 listings in my neighborhood last year during a very difficult market and was able to get one of them sold. Super proud of that. And the other one expired actually, but we're all still friends. It's just, you have to be able to have those tough conversations farming, I think, especially if you're living there. So the more realistic I think you can be in the way that you farm and the honesty and that uniqueness Holly was talking about bringing, right? The captivation of the audience and really honing in on what is the problems or the opportunities, and marketing to those specific people. That's where I dig in. And those agent CRM reports that Ryan mentioned are huge for that. Those neighborhood and market reports, sharing some of the data from there.
I use farming to, I mean, yes, completely. Like I want to know where my next listing is coming from. I mentioned the townhome community. I've had 7 listings in there. I have another one. Started out with a friend from my daughter's gymnastics class. She taught me on the shoulder, asked if I was a realtor because she heard I was. And that was back in November. I sold their house, very, exceeded their expectations, and currently have my 6th listing coming soon, all essentially on the same street. I know we're running out of time, but yes, I really like the listing leads letters. I try to stick with what's consistent, and I've kind of adapted them to my needs, but yeah, that's been great.
Just to kind of like rally, bring it back to like that momentum of like, what are we doing in Q4 to like refine business? I was just going to throw out like a couple of questions that I think are helpful for anyone's business, no matter how new or veteran we are. But a couple questions I would recommend asking yourself. If you doubled your business tomorrow, what system would break and why? Analyze that and really like dive deep into what you can do to fix that. If someone shadowed my workday, would they believe my priorities match my goals? Meaning, are you aligning your schedule with what you actually want to achieve? Are the tasks that you're doing worth your time, and are they bringing the ROI they should? And lastly, marketing wise, do people know what you sell, where you sell, and why you are different without having to even ask you? So those are 3 questions. I know we're wrapping up. I just wanted to throw out there, it was very impactful for our team when we just reviewed it recently, and highly recommend just give yourself some time to think on that. And I think you'll see a lot of different improvements that you can make pretty quickly.
I agree. Well, everyone, thank you. I think you guys dropped some golden nuggets here. We are in the final stretch of 2026. It's hard to believe 2027 is going to be here before we know it. Bet on yourself, because if you don't, no one else is ever going to. So believe you can and you will. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. Sandy, do you have anything?
No, October 1st is our next REthink Live, so mark your calendars now. I've put some links to the remaining events for this year. That's the Summit Conference in September and Explosion in November. So please join us if you can. Those are great events and a great opportunity to recharge as we head into 2027. And then your companies will be asking you about whether or not you'll be joining us in Denver. All of us, we will all be in Denver next year for the sales convention, March 7th through the 9th. So please be sure to sign up as soon as possible so that we can count on you and know how many people to plan for. And that is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. See you again on October the 1st.
Yay.